Greetings everyone, Olu here. Today is going to be a different style of video. I wanted to have a discussion today regarding the state of the Volt at the release of Season 6. I've seen the whole community up in arms, witch hunting the Volt for being the newest overpowered weapon. So I went into firing range to find out exact numbers to come up with an answer for the community. Is the Volt SMG overpowered? All weapons currently in Apex, to my knowledge, have no damage range drop-offs. This means that every time you fire a bullet at a target, no matter the distance, your bullets will always deal the same damage. However, Apex does have body multipliers that affect your damage. Yes, your weapon will deal the same damage no matter the distance, but what will change your damage is where you hit your target. Shooting a target in the legs deals significantly less damage than hitting a target in the torso or the head. The legends in Apex also may take less or more damage depending if they have the low profile or fortified perk. Characters with fortified have a 0.85 times multiplier to all damage numbers, while low profile characters have a 1.05 times multiplier to all damage numbers. This could be made easier by saying all low profiles take 5% more damage and all fortifieds take 15% less damage. I'm going to compare the Volt to the R301 the most heavily because I feel that they're the most similar. Yes, the R301 is an assault rifle while the Volt is an SMG, but they both play similar roles. So let's start out with some damage numbers. The Volt SMG deals 16 damage to the torso, 13 to the legs, and 26 to the head. In easier terms, this means that the Volt kills an enemy with full purple shields in 11 shots to the body, 14 in the legs, and 8 shots to the head. Comparatively, the R301 deals 14 to the body, 11 to the legs, and 28 to the head. This makes the R301 kill a full purple armor enemy in 13 shots to the body, 16 in the legs, and 7 in the head. So right off the bat, we can already see that the Volt SMG is really showing some impressive stats compared to the R301. But let's keep moving forward and see what the other stats are here to tell us. Now moving into the rate of fire for these weapons, the Volt shoots at an RPM of 783, while the R301 clocks in at an RPM of 816. Now that we have some numbers, we can calculate a damage per second and time to kill value for our two weapons. The Volt has a DPS of 208 to the body, the R3 has a DPS of 182. This makes the Volt's TTK 766 milliseconds, and the R3's is 882 milliseconds. So if we're talking a gunfight of a Volt versus an R301 user and nobody misses, the Volt is going to beat the R301 user by over 100 milliseconds every time. So when it comes to pure damage output, it seems the Volt wins in every category over the R301. However, damage does not tell the whole story of these two weapons. The Volt is still an SMG while the R301 is an assault rifle. The category difference between these two weapons means that the handling is going to drastically differ between the two. Let's take a look at these weapons' recoil properties. The trusty R301 has a very low magnitude to its recoil, and has a predictable pattern with very little side-to-side recoil. The Volt, on the other hand, has a large magnitude to its recoil, but is just as predictable as the R3. These magnitude differences really make the R3 excel at longer distances where the Volt begins to struggle. Yes, the pattern is very predictable, meaning you can still hit your shots, but touching people out past 75 meters is nearly impossible when going full auto. Hitting people at these distances with an R3 feels like a breeze due to the very small pattern, leaving a low margin for error. However, both of these weapons are extremely accurate in the right hands and have very learnable patterns. Now let's take a look at one of the most important stats for weapons in Apex. This is the magazine capacity. The Volt can carry 19 bullets for its base mag, 21 for a white mag, 23 for blue, and finally 26 for purple. The R301 carries 18 in its base mag, 20 for white, 25 for blue, and 28 for purple. These numbers are fairly similar, with the most notable differences being that the Volt starts with one more bullet at default, but the R3 has 2 more bullets when fully kitted. Now let's not forget that the Volt also kills in less bullets total, leaving you with a better margin for error, but counterintuitively also has worse handling, meaning you're more likely to miss those shots. Moving on, let's take a look at the ADS speed of these weapons. This isn't a make it or break it stat for either of these guns, but it's still important to know which weapon you can be more reactive with, and which weapon you have to be more proactive with. My initial impression was that the Volt handled way better and had a better ADS speed, but after looking back at the footage, here we can clearly tell the ADS speeds are almost completely identical. This means that you can use both weapons almost in the same format. Both of these ADS speeds feel almost instant, and it's honestly so crisp and clean that these weapons are so reliable in close range. This was not tested by me, I got this information from the Apex wiki, but according to the wiki, the Volt has a 15% ADS movement speed penalty, while the R3 has a 50% movement speed penalty. This is going to limit any strafing that you try to do during combat to throw off your opponent's aim. This is actually a pretty important stat line because you always want to make yourself the hardest target for your opponent to hit. Next, we're going to discuss the hipfire spread for both of these weapons. Apex has a reasonably predictable hipfire spread for most guns in the game, and if we take a look at both of these weapons' hipfire, they are surprisingly comparable. I don't really see one as being without a doubt better than the other, and if I was forced to choose one, I would choose the R301 due to the fact that its hipfire is a lot more clustered, resulting in more shots hit in those fast-paced environments. However, both of these weapons are probably better off just aiming down sights if you have the accuracy and recoil control. Now that we have a general overview of both of these weapons, we can make a judgment whether we think that the Volt is overpowered or not. And if I'm being honest with you guys, before I made this stat video, I really did not think that the Volt was as impressive as its stats are showing. Maybe it's going to take me a little bit more use with the weapon because it's only been out for a couple days now, but these stats are really promising. The damage numbers on this thing are surprisingly a lot higher than the R301 with just a slight rate of fire difference. This makes the time to kill on the Volt extremely fast. In close range, when you're hitting all your shots, this weapon absolutely melts. It's insane how fast this weapon is able to crack armor with the newest nerf to armor in general. With only 175 health, the Volt easily shreds through that with no problem at all. The only factor that still is straying me away from the Volt is the magnitude of its recoil. It really limits it to certain ranges. Now I'm sure with more practice and learning the recoil pattern myself, I'm going to be able to stretch it out, and I know in the right set of hands that this weapon is going to be a filthy monster. Is it ever going to be that R99 that we had last season? No, probably not, but it's definitely got a better ease of use than the R99 did, and it's a lot more consistent. I really think that this gun's enjoyable, and I'm glad that they added it into the game. It's really shaking up the meta right now. But as for, do I think that it's overpowered? No. I really think that's just people reacting too heavily. You know, when the new season drops and people are picking up this weapon and instantly killing you with it, your reaction's way more intense than it is going to be later down the road. Yes, the Volt is extremely strong, and yes, it's super frustrating to die to it, but I feel like that's more just because it's brand new. It's a reasonable weapon. It's a lot better, but if you're using the R301 and you're fighting somebody with the Volt at distance, you should win every single time. And let's not even get me started on the strength of the Prowler this season. Why Respawn felt that it was necessary to buff that weapon, I'm not too sure. If you've ever tried hip firing the Prowler in close range, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. It's literally 2 clicks of your mouse, and you instantly crack people. It's disgusting. So for people to be complaining about the Volt being overpowered, I think it's just an overreaction at the current time. I think once the meta settles down a little bit more, people will be a lot more accepting of this weapon and won't immediately call for nerfs on it. I really don't feel like Respawn needs to touch this weapon at all. I think it's in a great place. It's actually extremely balanced. It's that good leeway that we needed between the R301 and the R99. The bridge that it provides between these two weapons is way more forgiving for newer players, which I know that's the direction that Respawn wants to take their game in. It's also an energy weapon, which is something that we don't really see that much use in Apex. So, I like the weapon. I think that it's great where it's at, and I really hope that it stays where it is too. But now I'm curious, what are your guys' thoughts on this weapon? Do you think that it's overpowered? Or do you think it's fine where it's at? Or maybe do you think it deserves a buff? Also, I'm curious what your guys' sleeper pick is for this season. What gun do you think that nobody's talking about that deserves a lot more attention? If you ask me, I think it's the Prowler. I don't know why Respawn would ever buff this weapon. I think that it was already in a great state where it was at. Its time to kill is great, its hipfire is great, it's the perfect go-to weapon for close range. And I'll be making another video on the Prowler next week, I'm sure, because it deserves some attention. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below, and until next time guys, take it easy. Damn bro, the Prowler is disgusting! What is that gun, man?